because it's going to be like, what the heck is going on here? Why are we wearing a hoodie in the middle of summer? It is June in Michigan, right? Correct? It's June. I'm not the only one who recognizes that it's June. Talk to me, folks. It's June. So at some point, we should be near midsummer. So June 15th will be the middle, will be midsummer, is it? Or the official start of summer is June 21st. So June 15th is typically what I call Midsummer Night's Dream. Remember that play from Shakespeare? Well, it is anything but summer here. This morning we got up. Hi, Michelle. Good morning. How are you? And this morning we got up and it was 49 degrees. It felt like 47. Can you imagine? I found it's a good thing I haven't taken the comforters off my bed yet because it's summer. So, you go through that whole spiel where you your bedding out, right? And you take off the heavier comforters. For some reason this year, I did not. And typically by now I have on a lighter, kind of like a lighter. This year, I did not do that. And now I know why. And guess what? Here's a kicker. Here's a kicker. It's going down to overnight, it was 50. Tonight, it's going to be 49. So when we wake up in the morning, it probably is going to feel a little cooler. And then as the day progresses, it's going to rain. Now, we in Michigan know whenever it rains, it cools the temperature down. It cools the land down astronomically. So we know by now that if it rains, it's over, right? So here we are. It's the middle of June. It's June. And guess what Harriet is wearing? Instead of wearing, remember I promised we had such a winter. We've been cold since October last year. So everything was covered and you had like 5 layers on. So I was like, you're just going to enjoy the weather. Not so fast. Not so fast. So everybody's we're going to end up with some sniffles. But one of the things we're finding right now is a massive sinus pressure headache. We call it sinus pressure headache in this part of the country because the barometric pressure, which is the weight of the air in the atmosphere, impacts on your head like you would not believe. So everything in your head feels like, it literally feels like something is squeezing you all the time. So welcome to my life, right? Can you all see me? Hey. So we have a lot to talk about. And I promise you, this is going to be one of those shows. I love you too. Thank you so much. It's going to be one of those shows where we're just going to talk about what it is that we need to do as people, because there's just too much violence in our atmosphere. And a part of it, I think, too, is I'm editing my 4th book, After the Fire. So if you've never read any of my books, Through the Fire is where you need to start. You need to go after you've read Through the Fire. You will need Musings of the Spirit after that, right? Or perhaps you should read Musings of the Spirit first to calm you down, to get you into Through the Fire. So my 4th book, After the Fire, will be out in the fall. So look out for that, right? So we'll set it out for pre-order around the time of Halloween, like shortly after Halloween or so, or around Halloween. And it's remarkable because I'm editing the book. And now that I am significantly past violence, now that I have had some history with violence and I am now healed to talk about what happened, what I'm finding is that my perspective on it is unbelievable. Now I'm looking at it like, if this has happened to me, I know it's duplicated a million times over. And so when I look at the culture and see how many people are using guns as a way of resolving conflict, we have a problem, right? And I'm happy that the violence that my ex-husband exposed me to happened while I lived here in America, because he did not have a license. He did not carry a firearm. If he had been this violent, where we come from, where we lived prior to, he would have killed me, right? Because then he had a firearm. He had a registered firearm, but here he could not obtain one. And in a lot of ways, it speaks to the societal impacts. There are many sociologists and social scientists will tell you that there are socioeconomic disparities. So it's the social plus the economic. So the social status of a person, whether they're middle class, upper class, lower class, working class, or whatever. In America, we say working class, right? In Europe, they say lower class. But here in America, we say working class. So you and I are the working class. I don't know about you. You're all richer than I am. So you're all big baller profiling and stuff. So, hey, I'm just me all day, right? So here in America, the working classes, the middle class, you notice politicians like to talk a lot about the middle class because they feel like they want to make everybody feel like they're somebody, right? So the socioeconomic disparities are covered and affected by racism. Racism and colorism. Racism, the color of a person's skin, to a large extent determines someone's economics in this country. It's something we're fighting for. It's something we're fighting to change. Well, those are embedded so much so that we refer to it as endemic because it's part of the system of doing things. It's why when you apply for a loan, I'm going to angle this so you can see me more clearly. Is that better? Right? Is that better? You might not see my head, but you can see me clearer. Is that better? So the socioeconomic disparities caused by the colorisms and color have affected and impacted the delivery of systems and the delivery of services to a vast majority of the population, thereby causing an impact. It's almost violent in the impact that it has on people. Consequently, when a certain group of people who find themselves continually at the bottom of the barrel and at the bottom of the ladder, they resort to violence. Now, who are they going to take the violence out on? Each other, because that's who they have access to, right? They have access to the people they live with. So they have access to the people in their community. So you see community violence when they go shoot up a community style activity. They have access to the people in their homes, and they have access to their neighborhoods, their neighbors, community, people whom they know. Most violence is committed, statistically speaking. 97% of people who are killed, 94% of people who are killed by someone they know. So violence, because why? And that shouldn't be a shock to any of us, because that is what? That's truth, because that speaks to how do you know people? You know people, you have access to them, so you can go into their homes and so on. Nowadays, the trend in America has become public shootings, because now where people are going after people whom they work with, people whom they socialize with, and people whom they go to school with. So these are the facts of our life. These are our realities. This is what we're facing in America today. So I just wanted to make, in case you haven't realized it, we're 150 days, Friday made it 150 days into 2019, and there have been 150 mass shootings. That's not me. That's the people who collect the statistics. I didn't make that up. So that tells us for every day this year, there have been 100. It's almost as if somebody is keeping tabs and want to ram it down our throats so that we get it, so that we have to do something about it. What are we going to do about this? The lawmakers don't care because they think that they are removed from gun violence. They think it does not affect them because they're looking at the statistics. And the statistics are that people who have left a job, who are dissatisfied, people who don't love their ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, ex-former lover, their kids, pull their kids out of the public school system and send them to private school. Lawmakers are fighting to keep their jobs and fighting to keep their money because to them, it gives them more barriers between them and the public. That's the economics of it. That's what we're not seeing. We're not looking at it with eyes that are wide open. We're looking at it from the comforts of our homes, that this is not going to affect me. It's not my business. And if the politicians aren't doing anything about it, there's nothing I can do. That's what we're all telling ourselves. And what we're finding is that that is vastly not true. Say it, people. It's not true. It's not true. It's not true at all. So what's happening is that we're giving ourselves some kind of false sense of security that this never happened to us. And that is so not true. Shake your head. It's so not true. It can happen to anybody. Now, I am not worried because I tend, like everybody else, what do? I say, well, they're killing each other, right? It's not going to affect me because they're only killing people whom they know. There are very few random acts of violence. When it is random, it's just random. But invariably, the people have had an association with someone whom they shot up. Have you seen that? They go back to a school or they go back to a community center. And this is why if you ever interact with the government today, you can't enter a government building. I promise you that in the near future, you will not be able to enter a government building. Every interaction we're going to have with the government is going to be confined to a space like this. If they have to interview you, they're going to interview you on camera. They're going to use facial recognition software, retina recognition software, whatever. But they're not going to allow you in. Have you noticed the trend that's taking place in the society around us? You bank somewhere, right? Okay, so years ago, when a bank like Ally, that's what they call themselves, ALLY, started online banking, we thought it was such a way out thing out there. Well, guess what has happened? More and more banks are closing their banking centers because of robberies, right? The violence, the gun violence, people coming in the bank, holding up employees and shooting the place up. Nobody wants that. It costs a tremendous amount of money to put in security systems to stop that. So now banks are saying, well, do your business online. Call us on the phone. There are very few instances when you have to go into a branch. And when you do have to go into a branch, I mean, they're like, take your hat off, take your this off. I go into my bank on Northwestern Highway because that's one of the closest banking centers. I mean, you can't find one anywhere. Bank of America, like you can hardly find a banking center anywhere, right? And when you go in, you know, it's like, okay, what's going on, right? Until the security guard gets to know you, and then he's like, oh, well, I know what she is, or I know what she's going to do, or she's just she, right? So what I'm saying is, if you look at the culture around us, people are not going out to movie theaters as much because we can stream it. And frankly, I feel better. I'm like, I've been doing surround sound since surround sound first came out, like way back when. But now I'm about to build a theater in my basement. I kid you not. I'm about to put theater seats in and put a big screen. I want like a gigantic projector screen. I want the whole movie experience because this girl is not walking into a movie theater any day. You know why? Because it finally got to me. The other day, one of the things that I enjoy doing is I like going to the mall, right? It's my therapy. It's therapy for me because, you know, I get to walk around, and when you go to the mall, you tend to feel like you're in fairy tale land because everything is so pretty and so nice and, glory days. Well, this is me going to the mall nowadays. I have the mug look on my face. My kids call it the mean mug look, where don't play with me. Don't talk to me. I'm not your friend. I don't know you. Once upon a time, I would just be lolling along. No, I'm like, do not stare at me. I'm walking through the mall with sunglasses on. I don't want to engage with anyone, because when you engage with people, people are either off their rockers, they're off their meds. So there's a whole barrage. I'm just pointing it out to you to show you there's a whole barrage of contributing factors to the violence that we're facing. But the number one reason why the rest of us have become so paranoid is because of the ease with which it is easy to get a gun. It's too easy. We need to make it harder. Nobody's talking about taking away anybody's rights. I don't get the argument that guns don't shoot people. That does not make sense. Because if someone does not pick up the gun and fire it, that gun can sit on a shelf or in a barrel for the rest of time. So don't tell me that guns don't kill people. People kill people. People use guns to kill people. Okay? The gun does not go off by itself. The gun does not take up its foot and start walking. Guns don't have legs. They need someone to pull a trigger, pull the safety off, load that bad boy, and kick it back so somebody gets killed. So the ease with which guns are available is the problem. The second thing about it is that in inner cities across the country, it seems to me that gun makers have flooded the inner city with guns. So instead of putting infrastructure in that is going to provide people with viable, gainful employment. Notice I said viable, gainful employment. Now people getting $8 an hour and they can't pay rent. So you have multi-generations living in a house, 20 people living in a house, children, grandchildren, great-grandma, them and everybody else. And then it creates this whole hotbed of trouble. We're looking at gun violence across the spectrum. We're looking at murder, suicides are up. They're not talking about it. So in the inner city, you have Pookie and his cousins killing each other. But in the wealthier neighborhoods, you have husbands killing his entire family, then killing himself. Wives killing the entire family and then killing herself because people are what? Broke, busted, and disgusted. The ease with which guns are available is what does it. Guns are too readily available. So the argument that people say, well, it's my Second Amendment right. Well, it's also my right to live. Is that not enshrined in the Constitution that I have a right to live and the pursuit of liberty and happiness? Is that not my right? So you are taking away my right because you have your right. No. It does not work like that. And it's time for us, the lawmakers are going to ignore us because they get boatloads of money from the gun makers and from the gun lobby to not enact legislation that is going to protect us and that is going to stop the ease of access for guns. You don't believe me? Listen to my story. I wrote a book called Through the Fire in which I talked about my ex-husband holding a knife to my ribs in November 2, 1999. We lived in Orlando, Florida. If he had been successful in his application to have a license for a gun, I would not be here today. I would have been dead from November 2, 1999, and my name would have meant nothing. My daughter wouldn't have lived because he intended to kill us both. Do you understand what I'm saying? But because at that time, he could not obtain a license for a gun, and he did go looking for one at a trade show. What happened is the guy just took one look at me and said, no, we're not selling you a gun. And he told everybody else in that trade show, don't sell this man a gun. And then he pulled me in and he said, lady, I will not sell your husband a gun because I think he will use it on you and you need to get out of that quick, fast, and in a hurry. I kid you not. That's a true story. So if he had been successful at buying a gun that day, I wouldn't be here today. Do you see what I'm saying? And if you were to ask me the question, well, Harriet, what gives with this? I'm saying, you know what's going to happen next? It's up to you and I. We're going to have to talk to Pookie and them. We're going to have to appeal to Pookie and to our brothers and sisters and to our friends and to our neighbors. Put the guns down. Put the guns down, somebody. Put the guns down. We have a myriad of conflict resolution initiatives. The Justice Department of the United States government has spent millions and millions of dollars in gathering data for the last 25 years on the epidemic of violence. No matter how much data sociologists and social scientists, no matter how many violence prevention programs and violence prevention initiatives we've taken across the country, nothing is stemming the tide of violence. In fact, it's getting worse. And when you look at it, they're telling us that the economy is great. Well, we're all headed to a recession. Let's see how that's going to work. Because if you think there's not blowback from the tariffs, think again. So we're all headed into a recession by the end of 2020. I can guarantee you that it might hit by the middle of 2020 onwards. We're going to be full blown into a recession. You know what a recession means? People start doing what again? Losing houses, losing jobs, losing homes, and losing cars. So if you're working today, start saving your money. Because you have to plan for at least 12 months of nothingness. Yeah, they intentionally, stupidly or not, without thinking of this is what I call an unintended consequence of someone's ego. So somebody got a big fat ego trip one day. I'm the king. I can do whatever I want. It will never affect me. It doesn't affect me. I have so many layers of protection, blah, 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 blah. And created economic policies that other people are like mind blowing. Why do you want to why do you want to break something that's not broken? But just because of an ego trip, and now millions and millions of people are going to be thrown into a full-blown recession. If you think that blowback is not going to further deteriorate inner city communities and places where violence is endemic, think again. Now, I want you to consider what happened in Virginia over the weekend, Virginia Beach, Virginia. It was Friday evening. Just like you, I was getting ready to just chill and be chilled, right? Here in Detroit, there was the Grand Prix, not my thing. I don't like it this year because, Belle Isle is one way in and one way out. I don't like how that feels. If something starts going wrong, you'd have to get into the river and swim. Those of you who live in Detroit know what I mean. And swim across to Windsor. Not my thing. So it's not my thing. And I don't like how controlled it was. You had to park off the island and had to take a shuttle to get it was it's too controlled an environment for me. That means if something happens, I can't get into my car to leave. So I did not make it to the Grand Prix. I don't like the way it is. I like when you go to Daytona, right? Have you ever been to the Daytona 500? I like when you drive up to the stadium, park your car, get in the stadium, and you can watch it. You can get out and leave at any time. I don't like, well, you're going to determine how I get on and get in. I'm not a fan, right? Call it paranoia, but that's what it is. So over the week, so Friday evening, I was just sitting and contemplating, what I'm going to do for the weekend, how much sleep I'm going to get. And I had some things planned out and, wanted to sit back a little bit and enjoy my weekend, right? Here comes an update on my phone about a mass shooting in Virginia Beach. You know what I said to myself? I'm not going to listen to that. I told myself I'm not listening to that. I'm not doing that today. I did not watch it. I did not change the channel. I said, I'm going to go watch something else because I'm not paying attention to it. And it did not stop coming all night. I was so dismayed to realize there were 12 people involved. So I wanted to know the backstory. So I'm listening for the policymakers to come forward and defend what happened. Naturally, they came forward. And the first thing that occurred was somebody got fired. No, we didn't fire him. He resigned that morning. So I'm like, are you trying to justify that you told him he should resign? Because if nobody resigns from a job and then goes back and shoot the place up, no, that doesn't make sense, does it? Look at you. Think about it. No, you're all like, no, hell no. No, if you resign, you're happy, you're free. You're like, man, take that stuff. I'm gone. No, you threatened him. And the only alternative he had was to be fired or resign. So he went back in the evening to show you who had the power. And he took his own life, so you can never prosecute him after that. Well, we don't know if he took his own life because we all know how these things play out, right? Invariably, he engaged the police, and you can't engage the police in a gun battle and win, right? Now, in an effort to contain that situation, they're changing the narrative around it to say he resigned, as if that is going to negate the fact that the man walked into a place of work where he worked and killed 12 of the people whom he knew, whom he stood at the water cooler with, people whom he ate with, he lunched with, he talked with, he socialized with. They even knew his family, you all. One of the survivors knew his family. Come on. You can't negate that. There's nothing you can do to negate that. And am I holding them accountable for creating an environment in which he felt that? No, it speaks to his mental unwellness, that he was mentally unwell, right? But what gets to me is the fact that he felt he could do it. He felt like he could walk in with a gun and shoot people up. That's the thing that gets to me. That is what we need to stop. We need to stop letting people feel that it's okay. Because what all this gun violence has done is, desensitize us. It's made us feel that it's okay. It's okay to just, somebody upset you, just pull out a gun. You don't like what someone says, just pull out a gun. So your girlfriend wants to leave you, shoot her. Your boyfriend wants to leave, kill him. Recently here in Michigan, we had the story of a man who was in the army defending the country, about to be redeployed. and his wife was having an affair with someone else, and she said they went and killed him. The ease with which we have access to guns is unbelievable. That is the problem. And I know they listen to me. I know they do. Some of you all are the very same people who are designed to protect us, and you hide behind all kinds of different names on Facebook and Twitter, and you listen. We gotta stop the violence. The violence has got to stop. We have to stop the violence because it's killing our people. And in taking a look at the mass shootings that have happened over time, what has become clear to me is that there is a place in our minds where we feel as if, you know something, it is okay to do this. And it's never okay. It's not okay. Because when you look at it, I want to say that we've gotten to the stage where we think that, well, they're going to respond this way or that way. It's never okay. I was talking to a friend of mine. He's a professor at a college in Louisiana, and I'm writing my fourth book. So I messaged him and said, you know, I need you to write the foreword on it because it talks about the impacts of violence on people, not just in intimate partner settings, but societally. And he was just blown away because this man has gone across the country talking about the impacts of violence. And he was just totally, he couldn't talk for a while. He texted me back and he said, babes, I'm sorry, I couldn't talk for a while. Because it affected him, because he says, this is what I'm talking about. And it's becoming more and more personal. More and more people are coming forward to tell their stories of how violence has impacted them. And it's not fair. You know, recently I was with my friend, Dr. Linda Lee Tarver, right? And she was giving a speech at a Republican event attended by Republican men and women who were mostly above the age of 55. They made me feel young. I felt very young sitting with them. They thought I was a young on too. They were like, a young thing like you. One gentleman said, "What's a young thing like you doing here?" And I was like, "Oh, I feel so flattered." And I'm serious. I'm not kidding. And she was Dr. Tarver was giving her own story of how 3 of her family members had experienced gun violence, had died. 3 women in her family have been killed by gun violence by someone whom they knew and loved. And I was standing there like, it defeats the statistics that I know that 1 in 4 women, the statistics are 1 in 4 women will experience violence in her lifetime. I was completely blown away that I actually stood next to someone and I can touch that person who is part of that statistic. It frightened everyone in the room. The women in the room went like, oh! And I'm like, it has happened to all of us. Everyone knows someone who has been impacted by violence. So it's up to us. So Pookie, how do we talk to Pookie and our cousins about this? Whether our cousins are black or white is immaterial to me. I have a wide variety of people in my audience, right? So whether they're black or white is immaterial. People are people are people. The same societal conditions and environmental situations impact all of us. It might land on us differently based on economics, and it might land on us different based on culture. Culture here refers to our mindset or ways of thinking or thought processes, but it's going to land on us, right? So people in Appalachia and in rural communities are mostly white. They have just as high an incidence of violence as we do, of gun violence as we do. It is not unusual for them to settle a dispute by pulling out their rifle, their hunting rifles, and pulling out their 38s and their revolvers. It's not unusual. Same things happen. They have a dispute over land. They have a dispute about who slept with their woman, their girlfriend, their daughter, whatever, who took their cow, pull out the gun, right? So when you look at it, it's societal. And many of us, years ago, I was at a lecture and someone said, well, America is rooted in gun violence because that's how the West was won. And I'm like, but we still can't act as if it's okay. So this is not gunfight at the OK Corral on a Sunday morning, right? We can't act like that. We should have evolved by now. And that's the message that I'm trying to say. Even if our history is rooted in violence, because this is a vast land. And at the time when the settlers were moving across the land in order to dominate and to take control, they used violence as a tool and as a method of control so that they could carry out what they thought was their good vision for the land, right? But that time is past. We don't need to do that anymore. We now have a massive security law enforcement system that we can watch people from the sky. We can watch people through phones. We can watch people in any way. We don't need to have a gunfight at the OK Corral to determine what happens, right? Okay, so we need better systems of control. We're wearing police officers out. We're wearing EMTs out. Every time they have to show up at a scene of gun violence, after a while they become desensitized. Here in Detroit, another woman's body was found Sunday morning in a burnt-out abandoned home. We got a problem with violence. We got a problem with violence. How do you, security forces are people. Overnight, a Detroit police officer was killed in a home in another city. We don't know what the story is. It sounds like it's a domestic dispute. But she was killed by a gun. So she works with guns and gun violence all day, and she goes home and somebody pulled out a gun and killed her. We've got a problem with violence. Do you see what I'm saying? If that is a domestic situation, more than likely people feel hurt or abandoned, or you're going to leave somebody, then they do it. Over the weekend, there was a shooting between two men. They were lovers. One was in his 20s. The other one was 41. The younger one was about to leave him. Everybody knew that. They had a dispute at 3 a.m. Friday morning, and boom, the 28-year-old, 24 or 26-year-old young man is dead. Do you see? They have a dispute. They live together. It's domestic. They have a dispute, an intimate partner dispute, resulting in death by gun violence. We have a problem with violence. So the other person felt that the only thing he could do, the only way he was going to get him to hear how he felt and what he had to say was what? To shoot the life out of him. And that he did. Do you see what I'm saying? We have a problem with guns. The man who walked into his place of work, his former place of work on Friday afternoon, felt that the only way he could make these people understand how much they hurt him by making him resign is what? By pulling out his gun and shooting 12 people whom he had worked with, 12 people whom he had coffee with, 12 people whom he stood at the water cooler with, 12 people whom he interacted, probably passed in a hallway, down a stair, on an elevator, in the break room, right? Walked through the doors with, in the bathroom, shared a bathroom with. He killed 11 people plus himself. That is massive. 12 people. In countries in Europe, that would be like, oh my God. In Canada, that would be off the chain. They would have probably shut the entire country down. Here in America, we just kept it moving. We still went out to eat Friday evening. We still went to the Grand Prix. We still went sailing. We still did all the other stuff like nothing happened. We can't afford to continue like this. I am a firm believer that it is going to take something to make us do something about it. And it's going to be a tragic thing. And if I thought by now we would have done, I didn't think in 2012, when Sandy Hook happened, I did not think I would be having this conversation in 2019. Because 2012 was what, 7 years ago. I didn't think we would be having this conversation. I thought this conversation would need to happen after Sandy Hook, when 26 people were killed, including children, 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds, little sweet, darling little people, right? Who would be in middle school now, heading off to high school, getting ready to go to high school. I never thought we would have this conversation. Never in a million years did I think we would have this conversation in 2019. I thought we would have gotten the memo and we would have done something about it. So what am I asking you all to do is to examine ourselves. How do we respond to conflict? My God, there are so many pressures in life today. It's incredible how people feel the pressure. It's incredible how economic pressure is, and it doesn't seem to matter where you are. We're looking at a situation that is evolving in Connecticut right now. Have you all seen that one? Where a husband is accused of shooting his wife. His wife disappeared 10 days ago, right? She can't be found. And they have been going through an acrimonious divorce for the last 2 years. Sounds familiar? Every time, right? And so they have 5 children, and the wife disappeared, so everybody got involved. Finally, the police have arrested the husband and his girlfriend for obstruction of prosecution because they feel like he obstructed the prosecution of their case. The woman's body still has not been found. They found her car in a park, but they haven't found her body, right? When the backstory is that they were getting divorced, it was an acrimonious divorce. The woman had complained that he had been abusive and that he had threatened to kidnap their 5 children. So you can see where this is going. Dude is looking at alimony payments because they've been married for more than 10 years and child support. He was not about to do either one. So the girlfriend probably told him, kill her and you won't have to pay alimony and child support. So the girlfriend gets to be the wife. That's really what she's going after. She really just wants to replace the woman, but he wasn't thinking like that. He was thinking of his anger and so on. How did their story start? Well, she was leaving him because he had cheated on her. So what was a domestic dispute ended up in violence. We got a problem with violence. We have a problem with violence. It seems as if the easiest way to resolve conflict is violence. And we don't seem to understand the ramifications of violence, the communal impacts. When someone is shot in a home, it's not just the person who is shot who is affected. Everyone in that environment is traumatized because now everybody does not feel safe. When sociologists and social scientists ask survivors, the first thing we ask is, do you feel safe? Hell no, he can come back anytime. Even when he's locked up, they still feel that he can come back. People move away, uproot their lives, and they move away because in an effort to reassure themselves that they're safe. We have a problem with violence, a serious problem. And it's going to be up to us to implement solutions. So what am I saying? I'm not saying you should go out and build a chain link fencing over your house because you have to come out and interact with the environment. I'm not saying you should order everything online and not go out and interact with the public because that's paranoia, right? And that's not going to help any of us. But we have to bring pressure to bear on the lawmakers for them to get them to understand that you elected them to serve, and serving us, part of their duty is to ensure that a safe environment exists in the public space and the public stratosphere. In the stratosphere, there has to be a perception that the public feels safe. So starting now, I'm not going to be the only one tweeting the mayor and the chief of police. Am I? You are going to do your part. You're going to tweet and Facebook your representatives and ask them, what's up with the violence? You're going to ask them. You're going to, because for every person who asks, every voice, my voice is 10,000 voices. Your voice is 10,000 voices. When I open my mouth and say something, there are at least 10,000 people who will back me up. But they're never going to come forward because they're afraid that the guns will turn on them. Whether it's the guns of social pressure, whether it's the guns of the scope and the camera, or whether it's the guns from the people who are selling the guns. As for me, I'm like, whatever. I'm not going to let that intimidate me into silence. Because if I don't say something, somebody else is going to die. I don't know who that person is. It could be someone I know and love. And if that is not a reason to get us all involved, I don't know what else is. Because it could be someone you know and love. Do you see what I'm saying? We got to stop the violence. Talking to Pookie, yeah, keep talking. But at the same time, the people who are sitting in positions of political power, because you voted for them, they need to feel your ire and your angst. They need to feel public pressure has to be mounted. You are the public. I am asking you as the public to join with all of us in stopping this violence. Put pressure to bear on public elected officials, whether they're elected or appointed. Let them feel the angst. We got to stop it. We got to stop it because bullets are flying all over the place like it's nobody's business. People feel like if I don't do something, this is the only way I can stop Pookie and Jack and John and Tim and John and Dick and Harry and Sally from coming at me, which is not true. We're killing each other and fighting each other over stupid stuff. Is this what our ancestors went and killed themselves for? Both of us, black and white alike. What about the people in rural communities all over America? Are fighting to leave their communities. Have you ever read what happens in some of these rural communities? The things they do to children, the things they do to one another. We got to stop the violence. We have a societal issue, and it's public pressure. Public pressure. What did I say? Public pressure. Oh, man, I want you to join with me. I'm trusting you to join with me and raise your voice. I'm saying your voice is worth 10,000 voices. I guarantee you we will get an answer. We will get something. Put yourself out there. Because, see, this is just a crazy lady who just, she just sit down and she just talks, and then she gets up and she goes meet with these people and she talks to them. But then, you know what they know? You all aren't going to come forward. So they respect me enough to listen. Well, what do you think we should do? Okay, but where are the people? The people stop caring. You get distracted by some entertainment news, and we're not paying attention. We need to be vigilant. We got to put these guns down. I was reading the young man I told you about, the 24-year-old young man who was in a relationship with a 41-year-old. Yes, I read those things because it's gun violence, and that's my story, and that's my business, right? Violence prevention and violence prevention education. That's my thing, right? And I was reading, and out of that eschews all the other things that we do at the Exodus Foundation. So I was reading the story about the young man. I told you about him. He was in a relationship with a 41-year-old man, and the relationship was going south, right? The 41-year-old man used an AR-15 rifle to shoot this young man. Did you hear me? An AR-15. You know what an AR-15 rifle does to the body? Okay, so you want me to post the article that emergency room physicians across the country came up with. When an AR-15 bullet enters the body, this part of us, the mass, when it enters the body, it defragmentalizes everything. In other words, when the bullet goes in, it shreds the tissue, the muscle, the bone. Nothing is left. The emergency room doctors say if the person makes it to the emergency room, they're going to die before the physician can get to them anyway. So just the fact that an AR-15 bullet hits you is enough to kill you. You're dead. So even if you live long enough to get to an emergency room, there's nothing they can do. They can't stop the bleeding. They can't stop nothing. Because once it hits the mass, it's done. That is what we have to stop. I know we get angry. Yes, I get it. We're passionate. We get angry. And what are you doing to me? And you listen, you love me, but you don't want me. Lord Jesus, 7 billion people on the planet. Have you read my book, Through the Fire? People walk in and out of people's lives all day, every day. Pick up another one and keep it moving. If I had to shed a tear, and if you were going to pay me for everybody who said they love me and then left, you would owe me about $3 million, because 3 of them, 2 died, and 1 just still running his family home business, his funeral home business. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's not the issue. We need to love. But what is love? Love is not convenient. Love is never convenient. What is love? We can't say we love somebody and then they're going to leave and you're going to shoot them. You say, hey, nice meeting you. Thanks for the time we've been together. Now keep it moving. We can say, hi, how you doing? Do you see what I'm saying? We can't just randomly fire people over stupidity. Come on. You people like to show your power. Do you know what real power is? Do you really? You see, what we're doing a lot is we're exchanging the feeling of power, right? And we're associating that feeling with having a gun, because having a gun, we need to teach our young men that true power resides in your intellect. Because then you know when someone is insulting you, you're intelligent enough to know if someone is insulting you, or when they're misrepresenting the facts as it applies to your population. I was in a place recently where something similar happened. And I had to remark to one of my children accompanying me. I had to say, it's a good thing we're intelligent enough to understand what's going on here. That's power. Power is when I took the microphone and corrected that idiot and said, sit down. This is what happens. I just needed to say the facts. And then they knew they were wrong. That's the power. The power is in your intellect. The power is not in you holding a gun. We need to talk to people. We need to reduce. So some people are so trained already to respond violently. The only thing we can do is remove their access to guns until we get an opportunity to retrain them. So while we are retraining, we need to remove what makes them feel powerful, the guns. Gone were the days when a man just felt powerful by the fact that he could pleasure a woman, or a woman felt powerful at the pleasure she had, the power she had from giving a man pleasure. What happened to that? What about the power of love? Remember those songs, Learn to Respect the Power of Love? What happened to that? Now we're translating that power into guns, AR-15 rifles. This 41-year-old man shot that young man 3 times in his abdomen. Did he know that 1 shot was enough that had already killed him? The 1 shot was enough. It was just a matter of organs shutting down, because it destroys the mass. It tears up the bones and the fragments. Yeah, I do my research. Oh, yes, I read a lot. Because I had to figure out what was going on and why these things are happening. So I had to find out from doctors what happens in an emergency room. There's a friend of mine. He doesn't live here anymore. He became so traumatized. He moved to a suburb in California just to get away from this. He went to medical school here, born in Brooklyn, New York, right? Went to medical school here and got trained at the hands of the best emergency room physician in the country. This man is phenomenal. He has written theses on how to combat violence in inner city communities. He's world renowned and world recognized. And he got trained by this man to recognize the effects of gun violence, right? And after being trained at one of the worst, the hospital I'm talking about in Detroit, it's called Receiving Hospital. That's where all the gun violence case goes in. And he was trained in that emergency room. And that's how our paths intersected. He met my mom. And mom is kind of like, she brings home what we call strays, right? So for whatever reason, she just brought home everybody. It didn't matter who they were. She was like, oh, come meet my family. Come, you got to come meet my family. So she brought him home and he fell in love with our family. And I started to ask him about his training. He couldn't take it. He's a doctor. He couldn't take it. He had to leave it. He ran from Michigan He couldn't take it anymore. He had seen enough. So he said some days it was like this as a doctor. Couldn't take it anymore. The violence, right? And I'm like, at the time I was trying to get him to start talking about it. But the pressure, he couldn't handle the trauma and the pressure from academia. They didn't want him to talk about it. So he had to comply. So he moved to California. And I can't be angry because that's how he is coping. Now, years from now, when he's had some chance to heal, he's going to come back and he's going to pick up and say, where do you want me? But for now, let him heal. I get it. I totally get it. It's hard to walk. It's very difficult, right? And I say all of that to say the reason I'm asking you to bring public pressure to mount on politicians is because the chorus of voices that you will find emerging in support will shock you. Because emergency room physicians, emergency technicians who show up at the scenes, the police, I'm sorry for them. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for them. It takes like a lion heart to be a police officer in inner cities. You don't know what when they pull someone over, they don't know what they're going into. It could be his last minute, her last minute, right? And that's why they're like the way they are, because they don't know. We have such a problem with violence that even people like the technicians, like your Comcast, AT&T people, and your electric power provider, even they are walking with weapons because when they go into someone's home, they don't know what they're encountering. Such is the violent nature of the society. Pastors now are doing training in their congregations, have been doing it for the last several years, because we recognize that what violence is part of the society. We used to think that churches were sacrilegious, that they wouldn't come into a church. Well, they destroyed that myth when they went into Charlottesville, and it has not stopped since. And that's why some people are not going to church on a Sunday morning, because they're like, man, I have to live with this all week. Then I'm going to go into church. I want to worship. I want to be free. But I don't want to worship with people just pull out a gun because they're angry at something the pastor said, or a dispute spills over and they bring it to church. Nowadays, pastors don't even want to counsel people. When they're talking to people, they just sit there, mum's the word. They're not telling them up or down because they will come back and shoot. So nobody's telling them anything. Let them figure it out. Such is the violent nature of our society. We have a group of people who will not listen. Pookie and them are not going to listen. We can talk until the sun comes down. We can talk until the moon comes in, until you're blue in the face. Pookie's not going to listen. Pookie is still going to think that the best way to resolve a dispute is with that. Try, yes. Engage them, yes. Because we want open dialogue. We want the dialogue to continue because you can humanize them, right? It's much like if someone kidnaps you, don't just shut up. The reason they tell you to shut up is because if they're looking in your face, they're putting a human face to it. So yes, talk to them, humanize them. When they say, hey, so they remember your face, look them directly in the eye. So talk to them. But you know what? The greatest thing we can do is public pressure. Politicians respond to that. We've got to do it. And do me a favor, especially those of us, not because we have moved, does that mean it doesn't impact us? It can happen where? Anywhere. So you think somebody decides to go crazy, you know what's going to happen? People just start pulling out their guns. What's this? Gunfight at the OK Corral. We have become a nation where how the West was won is what it's looking like. That's not good for a society, because eventually policymakers are going to come up with the fact that, look, this is too much. I don't want to feel threatened like that. We're going to have imposed restrictions. I see a day and time coming when that's going to be a reality, because frankly, I don't like walking around and feeling like I don't want to go to the mall. Recently, I think it was Saturday. It was a nice day. I just wanted to go to the mall, but I was like, So many people walking around and somebody get mad. I don't want anybody pulling out. So guess what I didn't do? I stayed home. I'm like 1-800 www.mall.com. That's where it is. And you say, but Harriet, I said, well, it is what it is. You don't go to the grocery store as such, right? Because you don't want them to hold you up in a parking lot. One of these big blue box stores, the human traffickers are famous for hanging out in the store. I told you my story back in January, how my daughter and I were profiled and approached by a young man who looked friendly, but you could tell that he was, the lead-in he's the recruiter for the human trafficking operation. That means they're listening to him, giving him direction, and they're also not far away, observing him. So they blended in. They don't walk around with a horn on their head and a big sign up here saying human trafficker. No, they just look like normal people. But he kept staring at me and my daughter. He probably thought we were sisters, right? And it made me uncomfortable. This is my kid. So I pulled her close to me. But, she was like, oh, Mom. And I'm like, somebody is watching us. Listen to what I'm saying. And that's when she became alert. And she was like, oh, okay. You know what I'm saying? Because she wasn't listening, because she's just so anti. And I'm like, girl, it doesn't work like that. Right? So we were approached. Can you believe it? At one of these big box stores, I must say it was Walmart. I must say the Walmart in Commerce Township. I must say that they responded like you would not believe. I kid you not. By the time I brought it to the attention there were like 5 different security people around me. Like they said, we saw that on camera. They were going to pull the footage. We saw that, but we thought he was just a regular shopper, until someone else brought it up to them that they had seen him do the same thing. And they had 5 people around me and were escorting me out the door. They were like, do you need help to get to your car? And I can assure you, this is not going to happen again. This is never going to happen to you again. Because it's our goal, and you come to a store, you feel safe. And I'm like, wow, I'm beginning to think this is happening more than you know. It just needed to happen to me one time. And look this is me talking about human trafficking all day, right? And my daughter, my baby, this precious human being, my precious human being, just like you have your own precious human beings. I have mine too. You think they're precious? You don't realize how much you love them until something happens and you're like, that is everything in the world to me. I want a safe place for my children. I want to live free and feel safe. I want you to live free and feel safe. You are my community. You see what I'm saying? You are not strangers to me. Your names and your faces, this profile that you have established on social media means something to me. I mean something to you. You would not like it if you wake up tomorrow morning and heard that something happened to me overnight. It would bother you. It wouldn't be just a passing thing. It would be, that's someone I know, that's someone I care about. Well, it's the same thing with you. That's how I feel about you. I want us to live in a safe space, in a safe environment. I want us to feel free. I want, when I see you in public, you come up to me and embrace me. I want to feel like I can come up to you and embrace you. I want that to happen for us. I want your children to feel safe, to enjoy being child and a human, because we know adulthood sucks and growing up is a trap. I don't know why they're in a rush to grow up. So were we. And then we found out, oh my God, it's a trap to grow up. But we want them to grow up and exist in a world that is safe. My children are growing up now. They're young adults. So the way that I speak to them changes. And now I'm looking at the world. What kind of world will they live in? What's going to happen if this gun violence is as prevalent as it is? What kind of world will my daughter live in? Some of them want to enter into public life. And I'm like, hold on. They're jumping on stages now and grabbing phones from speakers. It didn't just happen to Senator Harris. It happens everywhere. My friend Dr. Tarver was speaking. She's the guest speaker. She has the microphone. She's on the, her name is on the program as the guest speaker. She has the mic. She was invited. Why are you trying to circumvent her and speaking to her? No respect. Do you see what I'm saying? Why are you trying to speak over her and she's the speaker? She's there because the organizers thought she's qualified to speak on the subject. Senator Kamala Harris, a full-blown senator from California, a former California Attorney General, right? Running for president. And a man jumps on the stage, a young white man jumps on the stage and grabs the microphone from her. It was so shocking. Nobody knew what to do. Not even the security people responded quickly. It took them a good 30 seconds to realize what had happened. It was another woman who said, hey, 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 and jumped right in. Because nobody knew if he wasn't going to pull out a gun. That is what we're talking about. There are no barriers. People feel empowered because they probably have an arsenal at home. Oh, I'll just go back home and load up my car and come back and just show you all how I can take care of things and how powerful I am. I want us to live in a safe space, but I need your help. I need you to bring as much public pressure. Let the lawmakers and the politicians feel the pressure of the public. We live in a democracy. Don't let them fool you. We're still a democracy. They're not going to change that. They're never going to change it because it benefits them. Trust me. They might impose barriers and controls, but they're still going to make you feel that there is some freedom of movement. Let us protect our freedom and mobility. I need you to employ public pressure. Let public pressure bring on our elected representatives and our appointed representatives. So those in public spaces who occupy positions of power, who ensure democracy is protected, those for whom public safety is their issue, and they ensure that we're protected, I want us all to bring pressure on them. I'm telling you the honest truth. I am as traumatized as the police and the EMT and the emergency room folks are right now. It is so bad that now we all are like, wow. You hear that? You hear that silence? That's the sound of the victims of gun violence. They're not here anymore. You can't hear their voices. All you're hearing is their silence. You know what it's saying? It's accusing you and I of not doing anything to prevent their deaths. They're saying you didn't do anything. You didn't do anything. So I am asking you, right now, I am signing off, but you are not. You are going to go to your representatives. I have reached out to the people in my city, and I'm like, we got to do something quick, fast, and in a hurry. We got to do something. You do the same. So maybe you live in a corner of the universe where there's only one person looking like you. Get involved somewhere else where your impact will be felt. Start talking about it. And if they say, we don't have that problem here, say, well, show me what your plans are if it does happen, because it's happening. And bring the statistics to show them that it does happen, even in, especially in places where they said that won't happen here or it will never happen here because blah, 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 blah. Ignore that. That's diatribe. Bring pressure to bear. Bring pressure, public pressure. Bring pressure. Okay? And if you need my help, just inbox me. You know, we can always go look up some statistics together. I'll throw it out there, right? If you need me to do that, do that. Let us start a conversation going, right? Because we got to change this. It's up to us. All right? I got to go, people. It's 11 o'clock Eastern. Time is moving. I got to go. So are you all going to do this with me? All right? Go to my website, theexodusfoundation.com. Help us. And go to harrietkamuk.com. I love you all. I am so grateful for you to be here with me today. Thank you so much, everybody. Be blessed. See you soon. Thanks, everybody. And that is our show for today. Stay tuned. We will have more for you tomorrow. Join us again. Thank you so much, everybody. Amen to that. Hallelujah. All righty. And that is a wrap. That's a wrap. It is a wrap. That's a wrap, folks. It's a wrap. Thank you, thank you, thank you.